Welcome to another episode of Vinny Makes the Hall of Fame Case for, because it's ... And I honestly think, Vinny, that this is going to be the most anticipated one. I know when talking with some of our colleagues, some of the people that we do stuff with, that they are really pumped to hear what you have to say on this topic. And it is someone that, if you just look at Baseball Reference, and thank you, by the way, thank you, Vinny, because Vinny set me up with and I'm going to promote something else here that we did. That'll be on the site soon. I got to do a 20-minute interview with Sean Foreman, who is the president and co-founder of Sports Reference. And it was a wonderful conversation. I loved talking stats with him. I could have talked to him for 1,000 hours. He was lucky. I was fortunate enough to get 20 minutes because he was going to, right, this is an old school. He was going to a concert that he probably thought that I wouldn't know who they are, but it's They Might Be Giants. You ever heard of them, Vin?
Yes, I have heard of They Might Be Giants. Okay. I have. I remember listening to some of their music back then. And hell, I remember when I was like a preschool, when I was like when I was like in preschool, they would have like some preschool stuff too.
I can't comment on whether, I mean, I think one of their songs is Istanbul, not Constantinople, probably would work.
But I do like that. I remember also putting their music up back when I was at Hofstra, when I did the Airwave, which was the indie, which was the indie program. So there was a lot of There Might Be Giants there. So I do remember them. Okay,
Vinny with another deep cut again. So this is awesome. So thank you, Vinny, for. So I just want to make that very public. Thank you for setting that up. That was fantastic. If we ever get him on again, you're going to be part of that, so we can ask some other stuff, because that was like really huge for the site. But so is this. Vinny is now. If you're a first-time viewer of this on YouTube and you're thinking, well, what I'm about to say here, like that can't make sense, because I'm going to say that Vinny is. I will put Vinny's historical knowledge up against anyone when it comes to sports. I truly will. And if he doesn't know it, he's going to do everything he can to learn about it. Yeah. And so do not judge him by his young age. Judge him by what he knows. And it's a hell of a lot. And we're talking about, and you can see it's on the back of the background here, it's Curt Flood. And I kind of segued my own out of my own head here. I brought up Sports Reference because if you only look on Curt Flood's Baseball Reference, you're going to see a pretty good baseball player. And this is if you don't know the whole backstory. You might think, well, maybe he looks like he's a Hall of Very Good. But that's not the whole story. As a ball player, Curt Flood won 2 World Series, a multi-time All-Star, a very, very good player.
7 Gold Gloves, don't forget
7 Gold Gloves, thank you. Yeah, I was trying to remember that other key thing. And unlike other people who got Gold Gloves and didn't deserve it, Curt did. Curt Flood earned all of those Gold Gloves.
He was a great defender.
He was, absolutely.
He also, when he retired, he was also 3rd all-time in starts by a center fielder.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. That's okay.
Yeah, the only two that had more than him was Willie Mays and Richie Ashburn, from my understanding.
Which is pretty impressive, consider so that he didn't move around at all, and a lot of times outfielders do. But with Curt Flood, there's this actually, and I don't know if you're going to bring this up later, but I'm just going to, and just tell me if you want to go to this after. Curt Flood, somebody that actually in your Congress, and I say your Congress because I'm Canadian and Vinny's American, there was actually a group of, I don't know what side of the aisle they are. I don't care really, frankly, but they were
bipartisan, but it was mostly Democrat. It was bipartisan, but it was
mostly Democrat. Okay, I wasn't sure. Actually, I thought it was mostly Republican, but I wasn't.
Either or, it was bipartisan. There were some Republicans who supported it too.
Great, that there's actually something that both sides can agree on for a change. And
yeah, it's nice to see that.
Yeah, I don't know why this is relevant to Congress though, but they were actually putting forth something to get Curt Flood in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And why don't we say why exactly that was? Because there was a trade that he did not want to do. He was having some trouble with Cardinals management. He believed, and again, interrupt because you know this better than I do.
Mhm.
So my understanding is he was seeking $90,000 a year.
Yes, he was looking for that asking price for a new contract with them.
And I believe the counter was less than 80.
A lot of it was because of the reserve clause. That was
Okay,
was with the
so
Cardinals.
let's explain what the reserve clause is, because Curt Flood would challenge the reserve clause, and I had to do a lot of research because I knew that he did. I knew but I didn't. I was doing all my research as to what that exactly was. So, in layman's terms, if I can, just tell me if I've got this wrong. Basically, when a ball player's contract ended with Team X, whatever that might be, that did not make him a free agent. That just meant that the team that had him, so in this case, St. Louis Cardinals, had his rights, and that was it. Do I have that right, or
That's somewhat correct? But the definition of reserve clause is that when the player's contract said that, like, the player's rights for the team were retained once the contract was expired, and as a result, they were not allowed to enter to another contract from another team. So once they were signed to said contract, the players could, at the team whim, be re-signed, traded, sold, released. They had no say at all in where they wanted to go. The team controlled every single aspect of where they would have. Like, the players would have very, very little leverage during that time. So
even though the contractual obligation had been filled.
right, that's the reason. So, like, whenever you hear people say, oh, players aren't loyal, they don't do this or that, they don't care about the team, that's not true. They often didn't say the team because they didn't like the team. It's because they had no choice. They were stuck there mostly. So for a case like Curt Flood, he thought that was kind of, rightfully so messed up. I believe that, as someone like myself, and he believed that a player should choose where they would want to go and play.
Which you could do in virtually any other industry, even then. Yeah. So Flood, the Cardinals were upset basically because Flood wanted more money and they didn't think that he was worth it. He was traded to Philadelphia. Now, the Phillies right now are very, very good. In 1970, they were very, very bad. Not only were they bad, and you and I we're not the two people to talk about the history of racism in the United States. There are people who can do that better than we can, but we can sort of put out there that in 1970, Curt Flood felt more comfortable being a black man not in Philadelphia. That he wanted
Philly,
to
let's just say Philly wasn't exactly the most kindest place towards black people. Let's just say.
Okay, and we'll move on from that because again, that's not really for us to say.
Oh, I know, but that's a big part of his story.
But that was a big reason why he didn't want to go there. Also, again, the Phillies stunk, and so his belief was, okay, you're trading me, so now I have to negotiate with them, and there's no contract involved. How does this happen? How does this work? This is BS. So walk through, like, after because he refused to report to Philadelphia, he refused to take the contract from the Phillies. What happened?
Well, first off, I want to talk about who was actually in that trade, because it wasn't just Curt Flood. You had Tim McGarver and Byron Brown and Joe Horner, and in return, the Cardinals would get back Jerry Johnson, Cookie Rojas, and even Dick Allen was a part of that trade as well. Dick Allen was part of that trade for the Phillies and the Cardinals. And when it came to Flood, he was with St. Louis for 12 years. He didn't want to go to a team that was over in the East Coast. He was used to the Central Time, and so he kind of felt that he was being persuaded. But then he decided to meet with the head of the Players Union, Marvin Miller,
who is in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Finally, it took them long enough to add that guy. They had to wait until he died before they said, okay, we're going to let you in now. Ridiculous.
But sorry, go on. I apologize.
Ridiculous. That's just my opinion. But he said, you know what? listen, this is a very serious issue for this. We are the MLBPA. We will fund a lawsuit for you. And as a result, Flood said to the commissioner, Bowie Kuhn, he said, I want to be a free agent. This is what he said, and I have the quote right here. After 12 years in the major leagues, I do not feel I am a piece of property to be bought and sold irrespective of my wishes. I believe that any system which produces that results violates my basic rights as a citizen and is inconsistent with the laws of the United States and the several states. It is my desire to play baseball in 1970, and I'm capable of playing. I've received a contract offer from the Philadelphia club, but I believe that they have the right to consider offers from other clubs before I make any decision. I therefore request that you make known to all major league clubs my feeling in this matter and advise them of any availability for the 1970 season. That is the quote word for word.
Okay, so it's funny. I just said you and I shouldn't be talking about race, but now I'm going to bring it right back up. Because I think you can't. Yeah, because so in so here's the backlash that he did face, not just from, I suppose, like white people, because I mean, obviously there's that prevailing belief, like, how dare you're making $70,000, how you're being uppity, which is, and there's I won't go in the history of that word, but there is a bit of that. But also there were, and I think this is very important to mention, there were no players who backed him at all.
No, at that time, players were very
white or black, nobody.
Nobody. But Curt Flood at the time stood up as his ground, and he actually compared the reserve clause to slavery at that time.
Yeah, there was that quote that he said to Howard Cosell. And
he did have a couple people that testified. Hank Greenberg testified him. Jackie Robinson also testified.
But they were former players.
Yeah,
at this point. So that's where I want to go.
Bill Veeck also testified it too, but he also wasn't an owner anymore. But no one that was active testified.
Yes,
none of them attended the trial.
I think that's very important. The one quote that I did read. So, and Cosell was sort of teeing him up, because I read Cosell's autobiography, and because he was a big advocate of Curt Flood and everything that he was pushing for. And he says, well, some people will say to you, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, but that you're being very well paid. Well, and Curt Flood responded by saying, a high paid slave is still a slave. And let's just look at it from our 2023 eyes. If we're getting paid pretty good money, but to a place that we don't want to live, we don't want to work for, and we don't have a choice, is Curt Flood's words wrong? I don't believe so. I don't think anyone would think so.
I think Curt Flood, especially in today's context, if you put everything, he was correct. He was correct, and he didn't play at all. He played Washington Senators in 1971, but then his career ended.
Okay, so let's get to that, because I want to talk about first what happened to his career and then what happened afterwards, because a lot of people made a lot of money because of Curt Flood, but Curt Flood wasn't one of them. Flood would eventually play for the Senators for not very many games.
I think like 13 games or something like that.
Yeah, wasn't very good at that point. Probably his heart wasn't in it.
He was morally just destroyed because they want to try to blackball him from the game. And even when he played, he was at his house. So many fans would send him hate mail and death threats and weapons in there. People said, you're trying to destroy baseball. You're trying to destroy America. His teammate, the legendary pitcher Bob Gibson, he would get at least 4 to 5 death threats a day. At least he would get that much. That is how much, actual mail, not someone coming to his face, literal mail being sent to his house, threatening that they're going to kill him. It was crazy.
Yeah, and trying to put it again, now we're trying to go back to a 1970 lens. This was incomprehensible to most people.
Oh, it's insane. It's incomprehensible even now.
Well, no, but I mean, I'm talking about not the hate that he received. I'm talking about 1970 was incomprehensible for a lot of people to sort of think, well, this is how it's always been done. you're for a property of this team.
Mhm.
Why do you think that you're necessarily this much better? Now, Flood's career unfortunately fizzled out. 4 years later, I guess, do you want to talk about the Andy Messersmith and who's the other
Yes.
player? Okay, please.
Dave McNally.
David Nally, thank you. I was blanking there. So, because 4 years later, all the work that Curt Flood did happened. So let's talk about what that was, please.
Yeah. You see, afterwards, he went to the Supreme Court
Because
in
Curt Flood
1970.
lost eventually.
Yeah, he
Like,
lost. It was 5-3. It was in favor of the MLB.
Mhm.
They went back to a 1922 ruling, and like Justice Lewis Powell recused himself owing to his ownership. So he didn't vote because he had a say in the matter. But to be fair, between you and me, I kind of think he had a say in terms of swaying certain people behind the scenes.
Okay, I was going to ask, like,
Personal.
wait a minute, how is it 5-3? Okay, so I missed
Yeah,
that
because
research.
one
Okay.
of the justices
Yeah.
had a ownership stake
Okay.
in Anheuser-Busch, and of course Anheuser-Busch owned the Cardinals.
Well, so he was ethically right to do so. We have to say that.
Yeah, a vote side, but in my opinion, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't think there was at least some persuasion behind the
Yeah,
scenes.
okay, I know what you're saying, but I mean, like, ethically, that was the right thing to do. But anyway, yeah. But so
It's called they call that a facade, Kirk.
I'm from Canada. We know we're French up here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But yeah, Vinny won, Kirk 0, and the sarcasm wins. So but yes.
Yeah, that's true. You see, what happened was the union, even despite the loss at the Supreme Court, they still pushed. Marvin Miller pushed. He said, "I'm going to do whatever I can to help you out, Curt." And so that's what they did. In December 1975, in a case that involved Messersmith and McNally, it was struck down. And in July 1976, the union and the owners of baseball agreed to a contract that included free agency. And I don't even have to go to just the baseball lens. Go to basketball. Look at Oscar Robinson and what he did for free agency. And do you want to know who his inspiration was? That was right. It was Curtis Charles Flood himself. Like ask him about that. If you ask Oscar Robinson if you ask the Big O himself what he thinks of Curt Flood, he thinks he's one of the most important people that ever was part of sports. My college professor, John Stout, amazing man, he said, and I quote, "Curt Flood is the most important baseball player since Jackie Robinson."
Wow.
That is his own words. He is the most important baseball player since Jackie Robinson. Not just now, obviously Jackie Robinson was a great player, but his impact was way beyond just the play on the field. Same thing with Curt Flood. Curt Flood, solely based off of just his playing career, maybe borderline at best. But if you factor in his impact beyond just the game itself, one of the most influential people in history for sports. That's right. Not just baseball, sports, period. In fact, not only did 102 members of Congress write to Cooperstown to induct him, in that same exact year, every single players union, whether it's baseball, hockey, football, soccer, every single players union came together and asked Cooperstown, asked the Baseball Hall of Fame, admit Curt Flood, induct Curt Flood. Not only that, back in the 90s with Ken Burns' documentary, Baseball, one of the greatest, most famous documentaries of all time, mentioned it. And even the Baseball Regularly Shine of Eternals, he was inducted in 1999. Like, if all of this for Curt Flood, and I agree with Dr. Stout, Curt Flood was a really good baseball player. But in terms of his impact, which is why I always talk more about impact on the field more than just the game itself, the game is a business first and foremost, regardless if people want to admit it or not. That is why Marvin Miller finally made it. And there's some people in general that meant more than just the play on the field. And in my opinion, Curt Flood is one of the most egregious snubs in any Hall of Fame, not just baseball, any Hall of Fame, because baseball would not be the same if it was not for what he did, what he sacrificed to make it better for everyone to have a chance to choose where they want to play. And a fundamental part of it. Hell, free agency period is now one of the major parts of baseball, of any sport. It's a huge talking point. It's a huge rally cry. It's a huge marketing push. And why is it the case? It's because of Curt Flood. Curt Flood, one of the most important people of any sport, period.
Which is about as American as it gets.
Yeah.
For free will, right?
Absolutely. We're all talking about freedom of choice, but yet you have people like on TV that say, oh, that's not what it should be about. Give me a break. It's always what's been about.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
And apologies to those listening. That is Jasper_the Friendly Corgi on Instagram. He apparently is very passionate on the subject also. He'll sometimes make an appearance audio on the show. Sometimes in video, it's his little sister, Winnie. But Winnie's usually very chill.
Yeah, she's pretty chill. It's like, yeah, I agree. Yeah, just smile and wave. Just smile and wave. You know.
Now, when did Curt Flood pass away?
He died 2 days after his what happened. You see, his death was really tragic because he had throat cancer in 1995, and he said, you know, this is only minor. You have like a 95 ballpark % of survival. Said, okay, I'll be able to survive this. Then he went through radiation treatments, chemotherapy, and he even had throat surgery.
Yeah.
That surgery was botched,
and
he was never able to speak again. And unfortunately, just 2 years later, just 2 days after his 59th birthday, he died, January 20th, 1997. His day of death is coming up in a week of this recording, and he didn't live that long. He really didn't. He only lived to be 59 years old. So just before he became 60. But if he was alive today, if this man was alive today, you would be amazed. Like, I even have the Sport magazine article right here, and it talks about, you know, his history and whatnot. And it only made sense to finally mention him on today because, as you know, I like large classes. I do not do small halls. I like people getting in. I'm not a very patient person. I'm not.
No, I chuckle because I know this.
I'm not patient when it comes to this.
Yeah.
But I think Curt Flood, when you had that list of like the 60 player, and I was happy with all the ones I inducted. I was upset that Dick Allen missed it, but the fact that Curt Flood wasn't on there was criminal, because I believe that Curt Flood meant more to the sport and what he did for it than any of those people there. More than Jim Cott, more than even Vinny Minoso, and that's nothing against any of those people that made it.
Oh,
I think they took way too long to induct any of those, and I still think Dick Allen, it's a farce that still taking him this long.
Yeah, well, still, yeah, because
Missed by a single vote. But the fact they couldn't even put Curt Flood on that list is criminal, because Curt Flood changed the game more than those men ever did. And that's not to say that they didn't have great careers. It's merely a compliment to Curt Flood because his fingerprints left on the sport. It's just forget just the sport. America changed because of Curt Flood. North America, the entire world changed because of what Curt Flood did.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I just thought of this now. I'm going to throw this at you. The NHLPA has their own award that they give to who they consider the MVP. Initially, it was named after Lester B. Pearson, former Prime Minister of Canada, and then it changed to Ted Lindsay, who was a big advocate for players' rights in hockey. What if the MLBPA does something like that and named it after Curt Flood? There's just something that came, because I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe they have an MLBPA MVP. Do they?
They don't. The NFLPA finally released an all-pro list, and they're going to have as many as 5 all-pro. And it was just Finally, it should have taken them ages for that. I mean, AP's fine, but man, like Sporting News exists, Pro Football Writers, you know, PFF, even all great websites, but the NFLPA needed a say.
Not
Like,
Hall of Fame too.
Yes, us too. But you know, but we don't play the game; they do.
Right.
I think the MLBPA should, whether it's NL, AL, or together as one, I don't care. But if you're, well, let's say it's NL, Curt Flood, you have to put him in there. You have to list him as, you know, your MVP.
Well,
You
no,
have to be.
you just no. You call that award the Curt Flood MVP.
Yeah, the Curt Flood MVP because
The Flood. You won the Curt Flood award.
you won the Curt Flood award.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, Curt Flood. I mean,
We do that in hockey. You won the Conn Smythe. You won the
won the Hart Trophy.
Yeah.
You won the Vezina. You won the Jack Adams. You know, all those other awards.
And the Lady Bing. There actually was a Lady Bing.
Yeah, wasn't there also like an award based like plus minus in hockey for a short time that they gave?
Yeah, what was it? The Emery Edge Award. I think it was sponsored.
Yeah, Emery Edge Award. It was something like that.
Yeah.
I personally want to see more awards like that, but I would love to see a Player's Choice Award for who they think is MVP, because the NFL sort of has that. I mean, if you count the NFL top 100, I guess you can say that. Granted, I'm not going to list it that much because the guy that I stand for
if it wasn't for the NFL Network, I mean, like they're the ones pushing for that more. Like the MLBPA, I think we can agree is the most powerful players union in the four North American sports.
Either that or basketball, but I would say baseball is more powerful because of what they've been able to do, and the fact that there's no
basketball does do their own individual awards now too.
Basketball does an amazing job. I love what basketball. Even the coaches vote for their own awards, and that's seen as separate, actually equal in many instances to the actual like vote writers award.
Yeah. So yeah, that's something. Actually, that might be my new push. Okay, send something to the MLBPA to do that. That makes sense.
I wish they did executive awards, like the executives vote for who they thought was the best GM, the best scout.
They do have executive of the year, don't they?
Yeah, but you know me, when it comes to non-players, it's not enough.
Yeah. Yeah, no, fair.
But Curt Flood, I think he was a voice of the voiceless, and he spoke at a time where it was not comfortable at all, and he knew it was the right thing to do. He knew it was the right thing to do. I compare him in many ways like how Galileo was. I know this sounds kind of weird.
Okay,
he said the Earth is not in the center of the universe; it's the sun. And what do they do to him? They put him under house arrest where he remained until the rest of his life. And turns out he was right all along. Curt Flood is Galileo. Curt Flood knew it was right all along. He said, this is wrong. The powers that be said no. People in positions of power said no. And if they weren't, they were afraid to say anything because they were worried that could lose their job. Years later, after he's blackballed, they realized he was right. After he dies, more people push for him. And now to this day, Congress can't agree on anything. Hell, they couldn't even agree on who the next speaker would be until like 1:00 a.m. They decided, okay, let's vote for Kevin McCarthy now. But they were able to agree on this. They were able to agree that Curt Flood should be a Hall of Famer. What does that tell you? When even Congress can agree on this, what does that tell you about Curt Flood?
All you need to know. Vin, who do you got next? I know who it is, but I want you to tell everyone because this is what I love about Vinny. Among many things I love about Vinny. It's got to be a contributor. So who's it?
It's got to be a contributor, or if it's a player, it's got to be one I'm really, really, really passionate about. But I want to stick with baseball here because I feel like, during this dead period where there's no baseball going on, I said,
how dare you? You're prejudiced towards the Caribbean League. Dominican League. Sorry. Anyway, go on.
I would say though that, Curt Flood changed the game in terms of how, we choose, but the one that I want changed the game in terms of extending careers. One, but might be saying who did that?
Who?
There's only one person that comes to mind, Dr. Frank Jobe. the
Okay.
inventor of the Tommy John surgery.
Which, well, technically Tommy John surgery is recognized in the Baseball Hall, though. You want something more.
I mean, Curt Schilling's sock is recognized, but that doesn't mean Curt Schilling is in the Baseball Hall. Pete Rose has a display with his jersey, but he's not inducted yet.
Okay.
I mean, and also here's another one. There's a display of Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, but are they inducted yet? No.
Maybe they should do a display of Sammy Sosa before and after.
Now he looks like a humanoid version of Pepto-Bismol when he wears his all pink.
He looks like Lou Bega on steroids.
Yeah, he does kind of look like Lou Bega now that I think about it.
Mambo number 5.
And he was never seen again. But yeah,
okay,
like
we better stop this before I say something that's going to get me.
Yeah, Frank Jobe is the one that I'm going with next, because I want to stick with the concept of baseball. He's a huge contributor, literally changed the game, and yeah, I would say that you can honor him all you want, but until you're inducted, you're still not in the Hall of Fame. That's how I look at it.
Okay, fair enough. So with that, I'm just going to promote a few other things that we're doing. Vinny and I are going to be part of, I think it's going to be live. I don't know yet. But on the 17th, we're going to be recording with our group. And if you've seen what we've done before, we have debated on who we think should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So we're going to tell you our Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2023. And we're not just going to tell you, we're going to debate it. We're going to be what the other halls aren't. And that's transparent. So you're going to see our entire process. Vinny's going to be doing a presentation. I'll be doing a presentation. Actually, I don't even know who I'm doing a presentation of. I got to see who's left over. I just said I do whoever's left over.
I have a list on the.
I already know. I've assigned you Joe Thomas. Okay.
Yeah, that's an easy one for me, but don't worry, I'm going to go way in more detail.
Oh no, it'd be like when we did that the first year, and our good friend Glenn Pulowski, who's in Antarctica, he got Darren Woodson. Here's my speech. He's Darren Woodson.
It was Charles Woodson.
Charles Woodson. Damn it! If only I edited things.
Wrong Woodson. Don't worry. Abe Woodson's also a request of ours too in the senior pool. So don't worry. There's a lot of others.
Damn it, Buckner. Anyway.
Listen. There's so many people with similar last names. You could say, what Kelsey do you want? What Barber do you want? You know.
Well, I know which one it's. I'm Rondé. I'm Team Rondé all the way, but that's me.
You know where I stand on the other side of the ball.
I know you.
But hey, listen, that's chill. I don't care.
Okay. Also on the Bucknerverse,
better than DC, but still more stable than DC's. That's for sure.
That's true.
No Ezra Miller. No Ezra Miller's in this one.
Wow. Okay.
or Amber Heard for that matter.
Well, yes. An occasional naked guy in pre-taping, but yes. DM either Vinny or I, and we'll tell you the details because we're not going to do that here. But also, it's the weekly show that I do with Evan Nolan. Actually, you got mentioned on the last one that we just recorded because we were kicking around this idea where I want to go back and look at every time an athlete appears in a movie and have that version of the Oscars. So like Jim Brown wins the Naughton Hall of Fame for his 1967 work in Dirty Dozen, or
like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in like Airplane.
Yeah. I suggested that we call it the Lospinuso. But
hey, I'm down with that.
Evan vetoed it. He says it was youthism. I think it's because of your youth. You can listen to that.
Listen, I'm used to it. I even was in a call with someone. They were all like in their 30s, 40s, and they were like, "You're 23 and you have that beard." And I said, "Yeah." And then Bill was actually in that call, and he said he's Sicilian. That just naturally grows in as you get older.
Oh, you came out of the womb like that.
No, I actually wasn't allowed to have facial hair until 18 because I went to a private school.
Yeah, okay. All right. There's piles of jokes in my head. I'm just gonna eliminate them. But
hey, don't worry. I'm the one that's all for edgy content. I mean, like I've told other people, like I grew up on edgy humor. I don't say it all here, but I say it for save it for DMs.
Okay, there you go. So like that's something that we're probably gonna do. We're gonna have like retro awards when actors are in stuff, and I think I've been more inspired by my love-hate thing with LeBron James. Hate Space Jam. I think I'm gonna love House Party.
Yeah,
I
he
think
was
I'm
also
going
in
to.
a Trainwreck, which also had Ezra
He
Miller
was
in it.
great in Trainwreck.
Yeah, he was good in that one.
He was really good in that. So
would you throw Dwayne Johnson as like an athlete?
well, that's what we got to figure out, right? So like I was sort of kicking around in my head. You have once you're 5 years removed from your sport, then that's it. Then you don't qualify anymore.
Yeah, I would
I don't
say
know.
that. So I guess you'd throw like the Mummy, the Brendan Fraser ones, and like I guess John Cena he appeared in, but like John Cena and like he's back to wrestling though.
Okay, but then that adds the other question: is that a sport?
Right.
Well, with Dwayne Johnson, he was in the CFL. And
he was in the CFL. Yeah.
He played college in Miami, not Ohio. No offense, Ohio, but at the Miami. Let's be blunt. So yeah, right. So I mean, like that's something that I thought would be sort of interesting, sort of like a look back. Also, too, in the Bucknerverse, we're going to be because we were on hiatus because Andrea Tessman has just concluded her whirlwind tour, and she's going to be back, and we're going to be recording another episode of How the Hell Did This Go Number One? And we're going to be looking at the Osmonds.
Oh wow!
One bad apple.
Can I make a suggestion for how what should go number one?
Well, I mean, to do a show, or what should go number one?
What I believe you should do a show of.
All right, go ahead.
Have you done Somebody I Used to Know yet?
Gautier? Yeah, we did that.
Oh, did you do Bop by Hanson?
Yes.
Okay. Have you done I don't know, there's a lot of like famous one. I guess She Blinded Me with Science.
That did not go number one.
Oh, didn't I know?
I believe so. That would be a good one if it did, but I don't think it did.
What other ones went number one? I'm thinking of Gangnam Style, I guess.
That'd be interesting, but I don't know what my take on it's going to be.
Macarena, I think went number one.
Already did it.
Yeah, obviously. Like that's a very famous one-hit wonder. Blue Dabba Dee.
That did not go. I don't think that even went top 10.
It was famous in like 99, I know.
There's
a lot of weird one-hit wonder songs and everything.
That's why I do the show.
Yeah.
Because like all these weird things go number one and bands like Nirvana never do.
And who had the better career?
Well, that's why I find this shit interesting.
Yeah, it's like just because you go number one at something doesn't mean. I mean, here's an example I always think of, like when it comes to sports. Like Cody Bellinger, for like 1 or 2 years, he was one of the better players, but now he's trash. Mm-hmm. But he was an example of one that never won an MVP. Manny Machado never won an MVP, at least not yet, but he's consistently dominant. Would you rather have the career where you're consistently dominant but never won a championship, or would you have a career in which you won an MVP once, you won a championship, but you're bad almost every other year?
Different people have different answers to that, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a really good question.
Adam Morrison has an NBA championship ring.
Oh, don't forget Sun Yui and also Darko Milicic.
Jeremy Lin. Not when he was not during Linsanity.
During when he was the Raptors, where he had like less than 1 minute per game in the playoffs.
Which was probably about what he deserved. Yes, at that point.
I think what other guys won a championship? There's a lot of like infamous busts that won it.
Milicic might be the best bust that ever won it. I never considered Adam Morrison a bust. I knew he was going to be trash when he's balling when Gonzaga got eliminated in the Elite Eight.
There's other examples I think of too when it came to like Anthony Bennett. I'm pretty sure you thought would be a bust when he was in 2013, right?
I don't remember what I thought then.
I mean, he was the first Canadian's number one overall.
No, I'm very familiar with who he was. I don't remember having a strong opinion. I had a very strong opinion on Adam Morrison. I said this guy was going to be trash.
What about LeRoy Martin? Obviously, he was before your time a little bit, but
Mhm.
LeRoy Martin, he was taking the same draft class. He was taken just before Bob McAdoo. He was
I
in the same draft.
definitely know. Yeah, that's before me. I
Yeah,
definitely.
he was taken by the Blazers, and he was in the same draft class with him,
All right. Well,
Paul Westphal.
since we're on this tangent, the only number one, because as a Raptors fan, that this was sort of like more near to me, thinking, and that was Andrea Bargnani.
Oh, but at least he lasted like 10 years in the league.
Yeah, he was
Sort of like Kwame Brown was. Like Kwame Brown obviously was not as good as like a number one pick, but he was a role player for like a decade.
yeah. Bargnani was an awful player when it came right down to it. He could do flashes of some good things. I think what some people forget, because they always say, well, who was in that draft class? I think the only other one, there was no consensus number one. I think was Aldridge in that class. I want to say
2007 draft class.
I'm pretty sure, like, because I don't think anyone became a superstar in that draft class. The only one who became pretty good was Aldridge, unless I'm confusing with another Blazer.
Bargnani, um from my understanding, Bargnani was taken in, okay, he was a 2006 draft class, and looking at the draft selections, like you had
Okay, so
Aldridge.
who did Portland take? It was Aldridge. Okay, so I was right.
But you had Aldridge in that draft class.
Mhm.
Brandon Roy would have been really good if not for injuries, so I guess you could throw him in there.
Brandon Roy was in the same class.
Yeah, Brandon Roy was in the same class.
Aldridge is in that
Rajon
class.
Rondo was in the same. He's like third all time average for
Okay.
assists in the playoffs.
Okay, right. But Rondo though, and I don't bring up Rondo because Rondo was not spoken of as someone to take number one.
Yeah,
That's why I brought up Aldridge, because I think he was the only other name, because there was not a consensus number one. No one really knew who Toronto was going to pick at that point. I remember this, like it was yesterday. It's like, who are they going to? Because there was nobody that stood out at that point from what we knew or from what we saw and from what the scouts were saying, head over heels over anyone else. And
the best Raptor in that draft class wasn't even from them. It was Kyle Lowry.
It's the same class? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, same draft class by the Grizzlies at the 24th pick.
Kyle Lowry turned out to be one of the best acquisitions too, because there's another thing I remember. Oh, crap. Sorry about that. Yeah, Lowry, like I remember when Toronto signed him, because like he had the stigma of being a malcontent, which he was, and then he wasn't. And Lowry, I think, is going to be someone who, when we eventually do a show, I might be like in like 5 or 10 years from now, if we're still doing Vinny makes the Hall of Fame case for, I might flip the script and say Kirk makes the Hall of Fame case for Kyle Lowry.
Kyle Lowry, in my opinion, is the greatest Raptor ever.
I actually have him as the greatest Raptor ever at present.
I'd say, as like in terms of best, I would say like Vince Carter probably, but in terms of like overall, best and greatest are two different things. Like I use this as gonna segue for like
fair. I know where you're going with this. Yeah.
Like for instance, like you would make an argument, like let's say like I guess you could throw Deion Sanders or like maybe Julio Jones as maybe the best person to put on the Atlanta Falcons jersey, but everyone that is inside the organization knows Matt Ryan is the greatest Atlanta Falcon of all time.
All right. Since we're here, I want your take on this, and this is not on the site yet. So you know how I do the top 50 on every team, right?
Yes.
Okay, so not every team's up yet because it's a long ass process.
I can imagine.
The top 51, it's not a committee, it's all me. So I've been working on the one for the Dodgers. So you think the first thing that would come up is Jackie Robinson?
No, there's so many great players.
He's not even, and as great as he was, he's not even close. Take a guess right now who I've got number one.
Oh, there's so many. I guess you could throw Koufax in there, but he had a relatively shorter career.
He's not. Because I use a statistical algorithm that I created with a little bit of influence here and there in terms of impact.
I mean, I could say Vince Scully, but that or Walter O'Malley, but they weren't players.
Okay, I'm going to tell you this right now. It's Clayton Kershaw.
That's actually a real case, because I would argue that Clayton Kershaw, and going with the baseball subject, Kershaw is the most dominant pitcher of the last 20 years, in my personal opinion. Because, yes, obviously he had the stigma. Of course, there was a rivalry between him and Bumgarner. But Clayton Kershaw he is dominant all across the board. And I think there's a real case for him as the greatest Dodger ever. And yes, and Yanks, in case you're curious with football, yes, I'm spoiler alert. When he does retire, I am definitely going to make a Vinny makes a Hall of Fame case for Matt Ryan. You know that's going to happen.
I thought you'd do a weekly show on that one. Okay, we got because we have to wrap this up.
Yeah, we're kind of going off tangent, but basically,
well, that's my fault. That's my fault.
But don't worry. But case in point, Curt Flood is one of the most important people in.
Oh, I got 2 more plugs. I got to finish my plugs.
Yeah.
All right. One more plug. This crap was on national television, a show I do with Chris Bourdet. We're going to be recording next week, Small Wonder. Where a guy decides to make a little girl robot.
It's interesting.
That's the plot of the show. It lasted 4 years. What can I tell you?
Wasn't there at the national TV of like, wasn't there that there's that wasn't there that show where all these guys were like grotesque mask and Monica Lewinsky's the host?
I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of, or like David Hasselhoff had his own reality show that lasts like 1 or 2 episodes.
That'd be a good one too. We did a reality show once. What did we do? Are You Hot? And it was basically where these very, very good looking people were judged on that one criteria. And it was awkward as all hell because
that sounds
people. Well, it was really awkward too because you're watching these people. That's all they identify as from their looks, and then some of them are being told, "Well, you've got all these flaws," and they couldn't handle it. It was really awkward. Anyway. Yeah,
that sounds terrible, but.
And I'm going to also mention 2 other things that are coming up soon. Paul Lawrence and I, we've recorded it. It's going to be up on the site soon. Where it's the retro football review, and we looked at the Ice Bowl, the 1967.
It could be worse. At least it's not the catch. Oh, I just said the catch too. Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So that one, and I'm in the preliminary phase of another show with I don't know the title of it, but basically we're going to look at when athletes try to sing.
Well, I'm pretty sure it has to be an awkward one, and it can't be someone like Justin Tucker.
Did Justin Tucker ever sing?
He's a beautiful opera singer. He can sing in 6 different languages.
Oh, okay. Well, then if he's really good at it, then there's no point in me talking about it.
It has to be really bad. It has to be a really bad singer. Like that's got to be the catch. It has to be a really bad. So sorry, Justin. You would not qualify. I'm sorry, but you got to be really bad.
Oh, I've got some doozies that I've.
Oh, geez, this sounds exciting.
Oh yes, I don't know what I'm going to call it. I think it can be like, what the hell were they thinking? But that's too easy.
The idea of what the hell were they thinking could apply for a lot of things. Like I could say that for when that Velma show that HBO made. Like why? Or when you ask Sony as to why they made Morbius, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's also why it's so great to live in an era where there's choices. I just don't watch it. Anyway, with that, this has been our longest show that we've ever done. So wherever you are, wherever you may be, stay safe, everybody.
Peace out, guys.